Am I the asshole for telling my surrogate to stop acting like she was my husband's wife? So my husband and I have been together for 5 years. We wanted kids, but because of my health problems, this wasn't possible. We decided to go with surrogacy. My friend nominated her sister, Brittany, 29, and I agreed right away because I know Brittany and the family. We've set everything up, discussed payment, short and long-term plans, counseling and doctor's appointments. We explored IVF and chose a private clinic to get it done. It started after Brittany took a pregnancy test. She only told my husband, even though she had both of our numbers. She only sent my husband a picture of the test while he was at work, and sent me nothing when I gave her my personal contact information. But it was okay. Things got complicated when Brittany started having access to our credit cards for her own wants, and claims that they were the baby's needs. She excluded me from doctor's visits and scans, and had only my husband go with her. Her excuse was my husband drives and has time, since I work and was unavailable, quote-unquote, most of the time. I felt isolated from this experience, but said nothing, knowing that she's bearing a lot of burden, so I had patience. My husband had no idea what was going on, and if this was normal. This was new to us, so we didn't know. She's 7 months in, and last week she had us visit to discuss things that I thought we'd previously agreed on, but she said she changed her mind about, and her mum was there too. I heard Brittany out and was shocked when she gave a list of how things should be from now on, since she said there was a lot of confusion in the past because of me stressing her out by complaining. She requested she gets a say in things like baby names after I deleted the list of names she sent to my husband. She wanted more access to my husband's credit cards and free time to get stuff done at her place, and also more time with the baby than agreed on. Then she wrapped up by saying only my husband should be with her in the delivery room and used the hospital as an excuse. I got up and firmly stated that I don't agree on her new terms and that she had to stop acting like she was my husband's wife and that this was their baby. My husband didn't speak until she started crying. She asked me to sit down, but I said I had boundaries. I then reminded her what her role was and how she overstepped. Her mum went off and said that her daughter was being mistreated when she put herself mentally and physically through the most selfless act for us, to make us a family. She gave up a part of her life in those months to give us what we want, and I was acting selfish and ungrateful. She had us leave and then told my friend, and it got more complicated. I was told to apologize for what I said. Am I the asshole? Edit. Yes, we agreed on paying for the surrogacy like I stated above, so no favors or anything. Edit. No, we did not have a legal contract because my friend said there was no need for us to do that, and basically talked us out of it since we're considered family, but we had an agreement including paying her. And edit. The question about whether Brittany had kids of her own. She was a single mum of a 4-year-old who passed away from an accident. She had him at a young age, but she always seemed in good mental and physical health. Now in the comments, AITA says, let's add a third oof. Surrogate is a mother to a baby who sadly passed away. So no alive babies at the moment. Who in their right mind thought a mother who lost their only baby was a good candidate for surrogacy? Surrogates go through extensive psychological evaluation, and I have serious doubts that she would pass. OP and husband majorly dropped the ball here. It sounds like they let this friend steamroll them into selecting her sister without any pushback at all. No one with OP's best interests at heart would have pressured her into foregoing a lawyer. The friend is looking out for her sister, and only her sister, and I kinda suspect they're deliberately scamming this couple. Oh, absolutely. It looks to me like this friend saw how her sister was depressed after losing her baby, and there was probably no father in the picture to try again, or money to go through IVF on her own since they saw this as their chance to have a baby. Widgets in Paradise says, this is why surrogacy is so heavily regulated. Was there a contract? If not, yikes, get a lawyer ASAP. Surrogates have no business getting involved in naming the baby or dictating time spent with the child. Red flags abound. You're not the asshole, but you may have put yourself in a situation where an unstable person could now have a leverage to essentially be a third parent to your child. Or single parent. She doesn't want you at the delivery, so she can just claim the baby for herself. And edit to add, after seeing your edit about the surrogate having lost a 4-year-old, she is 100% planning to keep the baby. Whether she also tries to take your husband or just claim child support is up in the air. And House Renovation says, you're the asshole 100% for not having a contract, and I find it hard to believe that your clinic did not insist on one before proceeding. I don't want to sound horrible, but I would check if your husband is having an affair with her. If not physical, then at least emotional. My husband would tell me if someone who was involved with both of us was messaging him only. Also, it doesn't even look like he's defending you. It's crazy that he said nothing whilst she made her demands and when her mum was tearing you a new one. Strange, strange, strange. Our next post is by user nickname BF Am I the Asshole, titled, Am I the asshole for giving my girlfriend's college friend nicknames after he kept being disrespectful to my girlfriend? So my girlfriend and I have been together for almost 2 years and are in the process of moving in together. Due to the whole 2020 thing, we haven't met a lot of each other's friends yet. This past weekend, we went to a cabin with a bunch of her college friends who I hadn't met. During the weekend, there was a lot of drinking involved and a lot of inside jokes amongst the friend group that I wasn't privy to. The group seemed like good people for the most part, but there was one thing that a couple guys did that rubbed me the wrong way. My girlfriend has a fairly large chest, and these guys were calling her a nickname that rhymes with Bits McPhee. After the first few times, I kinda raised my eyebrows and looked at my girlfriend, and she told me that it's just an old nickname and it's harmless and they don't mean anything by it. But it was a constant every time they referred to her, and at some point during the day Saturday, I kind of had enough of it. We were playing yard games, and one of the guys who kept calling my girlfriend the name took his hat off, and I noticed he had very thinning hair with a noticeable bald spot. So after a few more times of him calling my girlfriend the nickname, I started calling him MPB. During the games, there was a lot of banter and trash talk, and I kept referring to him as MPB. After one of the times I called him that, he got this confused look on his face and asked me what the hell was that supposed to mean. I told him since he liked nicknames so much, I made one up for him, MPB. He asked what that stood for, and I said male pattern baldness. A lot of the group started laughing, and he got really red in the face and kinda pissed off and embarrassed. After the game finished, we went to shake hands, and he'd muttered something under his breath about me being a frickin' asshole, but I just brushed it off. My girlfriend wasn't nearby when it happened, but someone must have told her about it because she asked me about it. She told me that I shouldn't have said anything to her friend because he's very insecure about his hair loss, and it was wrong to make fun of him for it. I told her I was tired of them being disrespectful to her, and if they can't take it, they shouldn't dish it out. She told me she can take care of herself and these are her friends and she doesn't need me to defend her from them. The whole thing put a damper on the rest of the weekend, and my girlfriend has been kind of icy to me since. I understand they're her friends, but this guy in particular just wouldn't stop, and I felt I had to do something. Look, I'm gonna have to go with everyone sucks here for this one. I don't think you should have called him MPB, and your feelings are valid too in this situation. I think you should have brought up this nickname thing with her more and talked more in depth with her about it, but you lacked communication in this instance. But again, your feelings do need to be taken into account in this situation, and it feels like they weren't being taken into account. But at the same time, there's a double standard here. You used that, and you weaponized that nickname in order to attack others. So yeah, not too much to say on that one. I'm gonna go everyone sucks here. Now in the comments, All 7 Pizzas says, you're the asshole. Lots of guys, especially younger guys, are insecure about their receding hairline. On the other hand, your girlfriend doesn't seem to be insecure about her chest or the nickname her friends call her. It seems more like you are the one who had a problem with her nickname, but that doesn't give you any right to mock her friends. And edit, Also, you say he was being disrespectful towards your girlfriend. However, it doesn't seem like she felt disrespected. Are you sure it wasn't you who felt disrespected? Quote, lots of guys are insecure about their receding hairline. Have you ever heard the saying people in glass houses shouldn't throw stones? And aren't you sure that it wasn't you who felt disrespected? What if OP did feel disrespected by this? Aren't his feelings valid too? Is Mr. MPB really throwing stones by calling his friend by her nickname though? As dumb as the nickname may be, she doesn't seem to be bothered by or disrespected by it. I would be bothered and disrespected if one of my wife's friends started calling her that, even if it was something that she used to go by. Commenting on other people's bodies just doesn't seem appropriate in 2021. But look, if she doesn't feel disrespected by her nickname, then you should mention it to your wife and let her know that it bothers you. Especially if it's a friendship that predates you and is not an issue that your wife has raised with her friends. If she tells them it's fine that they call her that but it bothers you, then you take it up with her. It's not up to you to unilaterally decide what boundaries your wife feels is appropriate with her friends. You talk to her first. You don't swoop in and start something with her friends because your feelings are hurt over something that wasn't done to you, especially during your first time meeting them. Greenie the Beanie says, everyone sucks here. As a female, hearing someone use that nickname so often and so comfortably kinda makes me uncomfortable. I don't know how you could call someone that and not mean anything by it. It's degrading and disgusting, and letting them get away with that is teaching them that it's okay to sexualize and demean girls like that. I feel bad for his future daughters. However, it's not my job, nor is it yours, to tell your girlfriend how she feels about that. She's a big girl who can fight her own battles, and she's old enough to know how to speak up for herself if it bothers her. It's her nickname, not yours, and just because you feel weird about it doesn't give you a right to be a dick to someone else. Although in my opinion, it was a little deserved. You didn't know his hair loss was a huge insecurity of his before you said it, but I'd also go as far as saying he doesn't know how your girlfriend feels about dudes commenting on her chest randomly. Even so, you went at it with ill intent, and that sucks on its own. Part of being in a relationship with someone is having feelings for them. It's natural for any guy to be bothered by another guy constantly referencing his partner in a sexual way. The girlfriend's friends were being completely disrespectful, and I honestly think they were doing it on purpose. Like you said, there's no way you innocently just started calling someone Chest McGee. I 100% agree with everything you said, but girlfriend has explicitly said she's fine with it, so there's not much OP can do about it himself. As per OP's comment here, girlfriend wasn't actually fine with it per se. She just tolerated it and got used to it after being called Chest McGee for years. Our next post is by user PTV420, titled, Am I the asshole for telling my spouse that she can't see my 13-year-old's phone without my permission? Backstory. So I've been with my spouse for 8 years and have a 13-year-old with a different mother. Living with his mother a couple hours away, he comes to visit us every other weekend and sometimes full weeks in the summer. My spouse is very OCD and will frequently ask many questions, between 10 to 30 questions every time he takes a shower or before he leaves back home to ensure that he's doing everything properly and calls him out, sometimes rightfully so, when something hasn't been addressed. But due to her constant questioning and authoritative type parenting, he tends to avoid her every time he can over the last few years. Fast forward to present day, and he has a cell phone with a plan under his maternal mum's name. My spouse is now demanding that she has the ability at any time to look at his cell phone under the guise of protecting him, although she'll be the first to call him out for cussing with friends, looking at his texts, seeing if he's into drugs, seeing if he's visited any porn sites, etc. I've stepped in to say that my spouse must go through me first before she can view his phone, and she's in complete disagreement with this, even though there is no suspicion to believe that anything harmful is occurring in his life. Am I the asshole for protecting my son from my spouse to be able to look through his cell phone at any time? Now in the comments, .NET developer dude says, not the asshole. She's being intrusive and is not respecting the parenting techniques you and the biological mum adhere to. She's crossing lines and making the kid not want to be there. She needs to back off and he needs a password on his phone. OP, you're going to lose your relationship with your son if your wife doesn't respect his boundaries. She needs to learn to manage her anxiety. It is unfair and inappropriate for her to be so authoritative with your son. It doesn't sound like he's into trouble or sneaking around, and it is your job as a parent to protect him. Your son has 2 parents already. Your wife needs to stay in her lane. Spoon Bill says she'll frequently ask many questions every time he takes a shower. You're allowing your wife to abuse your son, possibly verbal sexual abuse depending on what questions she's asking about him showering. There is no reason for her to ask a 13-year-old anything about his bathing habits. You're the asshole, and she's worse than an asshole. Right? I'm a little weirded out by all the not the assholes. This poor kid. OP, you're the asshole for letting your wife badger your son for apparently years. Sometimes rightfully so? No, step up a bit more. Well, the not the assholes are about the question asked. Am I the asshole for telling my spouse that she can't see my 13-year-old's phone without permission? And that is the right thing to do, so not the asshole on that. The badgering the kid about his showering is a separate issue that makes OP an asshole for not stopping. But that's not the question being responded to. The asshole response would simply imply she should see his phone when she shouldn't. To be honest, I still think that he's the asshole for suggesting there'd be a circumstance where he'd give her permission to view the phone. And Vain Alchemist says, gentle, you're the asshole. You're allowing your wife to verbally, mentally, and emotionally abuse your son point blank. If she is that far into her OCD, she needs to seek help, and allowing her to continue to harass your son is allowing the issue to continue. Boys, especially teenage boys, are dirty. They cuss, they watch porn, and you as his father need to man up and be a father. Am I the asshole for not grounding my stepson for not eating my mum's food and talking back? This might sound weird, but my stepson Joey talks like a grown man. He's 9, but oh my, he is such a gentleman. He has a smart mouth and talks in a witty manner. He has a personality of a 30-year-old. Admittedly, he takes after his father and picks on a lot of what his father says. Another thing I noticed is that he tends to act protective of his dad. How do I explain it? For example, when my husband introduced me to him first time, he told me to take care of his dad and not to make him cry. My response was to laugh, but felt a bit intimidated, honestly. Joey brings his own meals that his dad cooks for him when we visit my parents on the weekend because of his allergies. Mum complained about it by saying that we were spoiling him rotten by letting him disrespect table manners and not eating what's presented at the table. I explained that Joey isn't doing this because he's a picky kid, but he has food allergies and an intolerance, so she should understand that. But every single time we visit, she'd give us grief because of it. Last weekend, we visited for dinner, and there were formal guests. Joey brought his own meal and joined us to eat at the table. Mum saw his plate, got up from her seat and said, "No, you don't. You're eating what I cooked tonight, mister." My husband gave her a look, and I told her to stop, but she said she's got this, then proceeded to grab Joey's plate. Joey moved it out of her reach and said no. I said, "Mum, please leave him alone," but she threw a fit and lectured me about how Joey is being spoiled and will be fine if he ate what she put on the table. She tried to convince Joey to hand her his plate, but he refused. She tried guilting him by saying that Grandma will be upset if he didn't eat what she cooked and will cry because of it. He told her in a strict voice, "Cry me a river, build a bridge, and get over it, lady. I'm keeping my dinner." She was shocked, but everybody else started laughing. My husband's face turned red and he just paused. Mum walked into the kitchen and was so upset. She lost it after the guests left and said Joey was behaving like a spoiled brat with his god-awful, slick attitude and talk-back nonsense. She demanded I step up, get a grip, and start showing him consequences by giving him a punishment for what he said and did. I told her he has allergies and cannot eat her food, period. Nothing is going to change that. She got more upset and claimed I avoid punishing Joey just to please my husband. She literally cried, saying she got embarrassed in front of guests and I should punish Joey for his attitude towards her, but I refused. My husband wanted to apologize, but I saw no need for it. She hasn't been speaking to us ever since. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I mean, I could see why Mum was upset. She cooked meals specifically for us and probably thought she was being treated as if her cooking isn't enough. By not grounding him, I'm making her think I'm being inconsiderate of her hurt feelings. Personally, I don't think you even think you were treating her as if her cooking wasn't enough, or that you were being inconsiderate of her feelings. You literally told her that he has allergies and he cannot eat the food. She doesn't ever acknowledge that throughout this entire thing. She just moves the goalposts. Oh, now you're disrespecting her, and the child has no respect. Yeah, but think about him having to respect us and, oh God, he talks back in all this attitude. Lady, just because the kid has some quick wit, it doesn't take away from the fact that you're trying to poison this child by giving him food he's obviously allergic to. She's an asshole for continually pushing that. That is child cruelty. You do not force a child to eat something they are allergic to. That is a no-go. She is an asshole. You're not the asshole, OP. Now in the comments, Cake is a Die says, not the asshole. Quote, I told her he has allergies and can't eat her food, period. I'm assuming that Grandma doesn't cater to his food needs. I'd just stop visiting Grandma if she's upset about him not eating food that can harm him. If she wants to see him, she can meet him at your house where he can eat food that he is comfortable with. Sounds like the kind of grandma who'd feed him something that he's allergic to on purpose just to see. But Grandma is right. You do need to show the spoiled brat that there are consequences for their actions. She just needs to understand that she's the brat. No more visits to grandmas. Yup. He's obviously faking allergies for attention. Let's slip a little tomato in this casserole or maybe some ground peanuts in this sauce. I know I'm right, and then I will definitely expose his lies. She's probably the type to try and slip in meat into vegan meals too, just because. Long Island Iced Brie says, not the asshole at all. Food allergies are nothing to F around with, and your mother needs to understand that. She wouldn't listen the first, second, or third time you and your stepson said no, and then she tried to emotionally manipulate Joey. This is 100% on her, and she should honestly be ashamed. Going back to the fact that you guys all said no, which is the point at which the father and OP both should have stopped bringing him over there and inflicting this on him. This is definitely what needs to happen from now on. This kid doesn't deserve this. It must be demoralizing to spend time with someone who values your life so little. And Coconut and Potato says, not the asshole, she embarrassed herself. Joey sounds like a legend. Good on him for standing up for himself, although that is actually your task, not his. Our next post is by user Crunchy Sister-in-Law, titled, Am I the asshole for kicking my sister-in-law out after she threw away most of my single-use baby products and even formula? So I'm 19 female, and I have a 3-week-old baby girl. I do still live with my parents, but since I pay rent equally, they say I can have just as much of a say in who comes and goes from the house as they do. I've never actually taken advantage of this rule until recently enough. I have a brother who's 26 and his wife is 24. They are crunchy parents to an 8-year-old. Basically what that is really frickin' stupid. They use reusable wipes and nappies. They think formula is the epitome of evil, baby wearing, the list goes on. I'm the complete opposite. Pacifiers, supplementing with formula due to low supply, disposable wipes and nappies. They are completely against the products I use, and often give me things like sister-in-law's breast milk in bags, disposable nappies their little one has grown out of, etc. I used some, but it's not really my cup of tea. Sorry, I had a visceral reaction to those two things there. That's disgusting to me. On Monday night, my brother and sister-in-law were minding my baby for me since it was my birthday, and my baby's father, we're not together, we're very close friends and co-parents, took me to get some dinner in one of my favorite fast food places. It was great and really relaxing. When I got home that evening, my sister-in-law said that she did some cleaning and threw out anything I don't need. This immediately gave me red flags, but they were in a hurry to get out the door and left almost immediately. When I went into the nursery, every disposable nappy and wipe pack was gone and replaced with some reusable cloth ones. Same with my formula. There was 8 tubs and all of it was gone. I'm not able to replace them at the moment, and solely breastfeeding isn't sustainable for us. I was extremely angry, and I just turned my phone off to avoid being mean to my sister-in-law. She and my brother came over yesterday to collect something they forgot, and that was when I confronted her. I told her she has to replace everything she dumped. When she said she can't afford to, I said fine. Just get out and don't come back until I've been reimbursed or everything is replaced with the original items. My brother thinks I'm being a massive asshole, and he's on his wife's side. Our parents think I'm being completely unreasonable, but they think telling her essentially not to come back is taking it too far. Am I the asshole? Fortunately, you do have that rule in place where you're allowed to say who does and does not come in and out of that house, and fortunately you can now use it on your brother and his wife. I think that's fair enough given the circumstances. She's shown she can't be trusted, she's shown that she's a risk to you, your baby, and, your space. She doesn't get to come back until she earns that trust and she apologizes and she replaces what she threw out because there was no reason for throwing any of that out. She's an asshole for imposing her beliefs on you. So I say good riddance to them until such time as they apologize and right their wrongs, not the asshole OP. Now in the comments, On a Blanket with My Baby says, not the asshole. Throwing away unused disposable diapers is even worse than using them and throwing them away. They're still going to the same place, but have now doubled. Formula is expensive, and you say you're supplementing. Your baby is still getting breast milk but needs a little more. That's why formula was created. Your sister-in-law was way out of line. Even if she doesn't agree with your parenting style, she has no right to sabotage it. It's the baby that will suffer. She needs to replace it or give you the money to replace it. And OP replies, I'm actually using formula around 80% of the time. Baby gets the boob 1 to 2 times a day, and even after that, sometimes a bottle is needed because I simply just can't produce much. Any amount of breast milk is a wonderful gift to your baby. Keep up the great work and don't let your sister-in-law get you down. Breastfeeding advocates are extremely judgy. It's a cult. I breastfed for a year and was almost defeated by books promoting the notion that there's no such thing as low supply. I had plenty of milk most of the day, but my supply was indeed low in the evenings. This was not in my head. It was real. But they're not above mind games. I recall the trauma of evening failures, crying because I'd come to believe the formula was poison and I was poisoning my baby. Obviously, I woke up to reality eventually. I encountered this and I nursed for 2.5 years. I started giving my kiddos some whole milk in a cup at around 9 months, and one group I was in, you would have thought I'd fed them a couple shots of insecticide. OP, fed is best. Bottle or breast is irrelevant. I can't relate as I'm a dude and my moobs are more form over function, but when my kid was a baby, he had problems latching on, and my wife had to pump to get the milk out. It wasn't enough to satisfy him, so we would add formula to the breast milk to bulk it up, as our pediatrician suggested this. My son is now gargantuan. Clearly something worked. Egg and Spoon 42 says, so she saved the environment by, checks notes, throwing away all of your supplies. Makes sense, not the asshole, your sister-in-law has a screw loose. I'm sure she has a replacement screw somewhere, it's reusable after all. Although I think she might need to replace all of them. I'm sorry OP, but your sister-in-law is out of her mind. Talk about waste. And not the asshole. If your brother doesn't understand, ask him this. How would you have felt while you live on a budget if I'd been at your place and thrown out your stuff because I don't agree with it? Bottom line is, different parenting styles aren't wrong. They're just that. Different. If we both don't learn to respect each other's choices, this will be the first of many problems. Is that how you want these cousins to grow up? With their parents fighting? If he becomes reasonable, or they truly apologize, then maybe lift the don't come back and let them replace as able, with a deadline, or it all comes back up. Our next post is by user HomeTime6077, titled, Am I the asshole for refusing to pay for my sister's husband's surgery with inheritance/college money? Context. So my sister, female 27, and I, 18 female, lost our dad a year ago. He was my only parent, as mum was never in mine or my sister's life. Dad left money, inheritance, for me and my sister, and she used her inheritance to get new cars and renovate her house that I live in with my aunt right now, because my brother-in-law didn't let me stay with my sister. I'm planning on using my inheritance money to pay for college tuition, and I've always wanted to be a doctor but haven't decided which branch yet. My sister and I haven't been close. It started after she got married to her chronically ill husband, who was allowed to make backhanded comments about Dad and mock his illness and make a scene at his funeral. Only because he's ill and shouldn't be held accountable for his behavior. I've distanced myself, but my sister kept visiting a lot lately and venting about my brother-in-law's condition. He's been in and out of the hospital for heart problems and in need for a surgery. She brought up my inheritance money several times, but I end up cutting the conversation short. She then straight up asked if I could help pay for her husband's surgery and said that she'd pay me back in less than a year. I felt uneasy because if I give her money from my inheritance, which is a large amount, then there's no guarantee she'll pay back before it's time to apply for college. I'm taking a gap year, but I know that my sister can't pay back that much, and I felt I was risking my future. I refused to help, and she had a meltdown at my aunt's house, calling me heartless, cruel, with no empathy. She said that her husband's health should be a priority, and I needed to help because education is nothing compared to someone's health, and asked if I'd be happy to see her as a widow and my nephew with no father. My aunt suggested that others pay, but most of them cut my sister and her husband off. I argued that her husband's poor health isn't my fault after she kept blaming and guilt-tripping me. She kept crying, and although my aunt decided to stay out of it, she said that I should be prepared for permanent damage in my relationship with my sister if I don't help her now. She's been sending texts and pictures of her family, telling me this is what I was saying no to. A happy, healthy family with a healthy husband and father. I cried and felt like I was being a selfish, no-good aunt and sister. I asked my friend, and he said let them sell their cars and all the luxurious stuff they bought to afford the surgery, and warned me if I give them money, I'll never get it back, and may never be able to go to medical school. You know what? I completely agree with your friend on that one. If they have luxurious stuff that they bought, they can sell all of that before they come to you. You're a last-minute resort, but they're treating you as a cash cow that they never intend to pay that money back to. On top of his disgusting behavior towards your dad, his continuous backhanded comments to you and making a scene at the funeral, I get that you're being guilt-tripped here and you feel bad because she's saying that it's your fault if he dies. They have every ability to pay this off themselves. They'd rather just get it for free from you. He's not going to miss out on that surgery. To me, it's more than likely they've already got it ready to go. This is just them trying to get money out of you. That's enough to completely cut someone out of your life. Just gonna put it out there. They deserve to be cut off just like everyone else has cut them off. But you don't have to do that if you don't want to, obviously. I'm going not the asshole OP. Now in the comments, Kashi Callow says, your friend is correct. You will never get the money back because sis isn't willing to give up her luxurious lifestyle. She chose how to spend her inheritance, didn't save up for a rainy day, and isn't entitled to yours because of her poor financial planning. Not the arsehole. And OP replies, I'm not sure whether they still have anything of value, because I remember my aunt talking about my sister selling her car in May. Cars depreciate in value quickly. It still isn't your problem that she decided to spend all of her inheritance unwisely. They are trying to live outside of their means as a family, which means if you give any money, be prepared not to get it back. Don't be surprised if you keep getting asked for more until you're left with nothing. You can have this relationship with your sister, or you can pay for medical school. You can't have both. But your sister and her husband seem toxic, so distancing from them should be your first step. Dimity Blue replies, I agree. I think Sis torpedoed the idea of a family when she left her 17-year-old sister scrambling for a home. OP wasn't family then. And allowed brother-in-law to make a scene at the funeral and mocking OP's father's illness. Curious Tsukahime says, not the asshole. Your sister chose to spend money that she got less than a year ago on expensive things instead of planning for the future like you did. Easy come, easy go, as they say. Do not give them a penny of your money. They have options they don't want to take, and that's not on you. You are not getting that money back if you lend it. You'll become a fine doctor someday, and I'm rooting for you. And she did all of that knowing her husband was chronically ill and would inevitably need medical care of some kind, which gets expensive quick. It should have been a no-brainer for the sister to stash her inheritance aside in anticipation of needing it for medical bills. Instead, she spent it selfishly, like assuming she could bully OP into coughing up her share when Sis finally needed it. Exactly, or put it in a high-yield aggressive savings that would pay dividends faster. They chose to invest in other areas that weren't necessary. They are so out of line and out of their depth, it is ridiculous. OP is getting a bad rap for their bad habits. Our next post is by user @466433 titled, Am I the asshole for cancelling my son's birthday party upon discovering that he ruined his stepbrother's deceased brother's hoodie? It's a complex situation, but I'll do my best to explain. I have a biological son named Leo. He's 16 and is from my previous relationship. I married his stepmom, who is a mother of 2 boys, Connor, 20, deceased, and Derek, 12. I've never had the pleasure to meet Connor, who tragically passed away from a motorcycle accident. Derek was so devastated by this loss, and although it's been years, he's still pretty much grieving. I've seen tons of pictures and videos of Connor and made efforts to get to know who he was as a way to share Derek's grief and be there for him to lend an ear and a comforting shoulder. It's safe to say that Derek and I grew a strong bond in no time. But my son Leo isn't close to Derek, which is understandable because not all siblings and step-siblings are the same. Leo and Derek are different in everything, which isn't bad at all, but Leo calls himself the brutally honest type and makes insensitive comments about Derek most of the time. They tend to be under the guise of advice. Derek never complained, so I had to step in and tell Leo to stop being insensitive towards his stepbrother, especially with everything regarding Connor and his memory. Leo would say, okay, I get it, and I won't do it again. Days ago, Leo wanted to hang out with friends and asked Derek if he wanted to join. Derek agreed and put on Connor's hoodie before going out. Leo commented on the hoodie and called it ugly and asked him to put on something else, but Derek insisted on wearing it or he was not going to go, so Leo dropped it. Hours later, Derek came home crying with his hoodie in hand. He said Leo and his friends cut it into pieces while he was in the bathroom after they convinced him to take it off. I was furious. I asked Leo and he said that it was his friend's idea, then said he had to do it since Derek wears it everywhere and it looked old and embarrassing. I reminded him who this hoodie belonged to and he said, so what? Maybe this will help him move on in life. I told him his birthday was cancelled and his friends aren't welcome anymore. He pitched a fit saying his birthday was a right, not a privilege, and I can't cancel it. He had my ex criticize my decision and wanted to host his birthday party, but I refused because he's grounded, so no party anywhere. She and her family called me awful and ridiculous and asked me to think how Leo will hate me for this, but I insisted that he needed punishment for putting his stepbrother through this. Note, the hoodie belonged to Connor when he was younger, and Derek kept it. Now in the comments, GlumT2604 says, "Not the asshole. That's a cruel, cruel thing to do." Edit, just read the ages. At 16, your son did that to a bereaved 12-year-old. Perhaps seek therapy for him? The 12-year-old is grieving in the emotionally vulnerable pre-teen, almost teen years, and who has to live with someone who not only shamed and berated his way of grieving, but also did something so cruel to hurt him. If anything, I'd go with therapy for the 12-year-old before the 16-year-old, but they both need therapy one way or another. A 16-year-old who most likely did something horrible like that on a whim will do much worse to get back at OP and his stepbrother for cancelling his birthday. All of the 12-year-olds and Connor's memories and possessions need to be watched or locked away and secured ASAP. Edda Valkyrie says, quote, "His birthday was a right, not a privilege." That may be one of the most entitled things I've ever heard. He did something absolutely terrible, and that hoodie can't be replaced. I cannot believe the complete lack of empathy that he displayed with his actions. What he did to Derek was cruel. He absolutely deserves to have his birthday celebration cancelled. Not the asshole, and good on you for actually disciplining him even though he's your bio son. For context, there were quite a few AmITheA posts where a parent will choose their bio child over their stepchild even when they're clearly in the wrong. And OP replies, "I have no idea where he comes up with such things, but I know that his friends aren't the nicest, so they might have been teaching him." Not the asshole, but you need to do some serious soul searching to determine whether you really believe Leo's friends are teaching him to be a jerk and bully, or if he's just gravitated to these friends because that's the kind of guy he is. In a group of bad influences, it's usually all of them who are the bad guy. From the way you describe Leo, he wasn't exactly an altar boy dragged into being a bully against his will. Be honest about who Leo is so that you can get him and your family the help you all need. Derek shouldn't feel unsafe and uncomfortable in his own home, and I guarantee that he's feeling that way if Leo is treating him like this. Not to mention that Leo's goal in insisting a birthday party is his right, with his mum's and her family's support, means you should be very concerned about your family's safety, because there's no question Leo is going to seek retribution. Good luck. Am I the asshole for not taking my husband to my brother-in-law's funeral after he went against my sister's wishes? So my sister's husband was sick for over 6 months. In the past couple of months, he got worse. They have 2 kids, nephew is 4 and niece is 6. I agreed to take the kids in to look after them and help my sister focus on her husband. A week ago, I got a call at 6:50 from my sister crying, telling me her husband had just passed away. It was so devastating. I was still in bed when I got the news. I checked on the kids and they were asleep. I had to go see my sister and be with her. I asked my husband to keep an eye on the kids and warned him to not tell them about their father's passing till their mum got there and told them herself in her own way, since she made me a promise to wait to tell them herself. He nodded but said telling them the sooner the better. I told him it was none of his business and he needed to respect their mother's wish. He said I could go and he would watch the kids. An hour later, my phone rang while I was with my sister, and it was my husband telling me to get home ASAP because the kids had a breakdown after he told them their father passed. I was so dumbfounded and so mad and helpless. I asked why he told them, but I couldn't hear his reply because the kids were crying loudly in the background. Their mother heard and figured they found out. She told me to drive her to see them. I apologized for what my husband did, but she didn't respond. We got home and it was a mess. My heart sank seeing the kids crying for their dad like that. Their mum took them inside and shut the door. I lost it on my husband, and he said he didn't want to say anything and even made them breakfast, but when he heard the kids talk about what they were going to do when they see their dad, he soon felt he had the urge to tell them. I yelled at him for going against my sister's wishes. He apologized to my sister, but she said she doesn't want to see him because the kids stopped talking from their trauma. He wanted to go to the funeral, but I told him my sister doesn't want to see him and I'm respecting her wish. He got upset seeing I excluded him from a family event, which was unfair and flat out petty. He said he couldn't help it, so I shouldn't hold him accountable because it just happened. But I felt ashamed and a major letdown for my sister because she stated her wishes and he didn't respect them. Yeah, I'm just gonna go straight out of the gates and say he's an asshole. Plain and simple. This has nothing to do with him. This has absolutely nothing to do with him. He is excluded from this family event, and I'm not sure funerals are particularly family events. That puts it in a positive light. This is a really negative light, and you don't particularly want to be going to funerals or want them happening to your family in the first place. It's not unfair, and it's not flat out petty. He's denying his actions, he's denying the existence of other people's feelings and the trauma he's caused to these kids, and this is the consequence of him not listening and not doing what you tell him to do. If I were you though, OP, I would feel a bit of shame that your husband does this, and I would reconsider my future with this person. This isn't a heat-of-the-moment kind of decision that he's like, oh, I messed up, I really messed up, I will never do this again. This is a choice that he had so much warning for, and he still chose to do it anyway, against all common sense and all common knowledge. That is not normal. Not the asshole, OP, but yikes. Now in the comments, not the asshole. I was babysitting for a family friend while they were at the hospital saying goodbye to their other child. I knew that their son had died, but I kept my mouth shut and loved on their daughter, who was talking about going to see her brother until they got home because it was 100,000% not my place to say anything. It didn't even cross my mind to tell her, even though I had to leave the room a few times to wipe my eyes and regain composure. Exactly. Children that young are easily distracted as well. He really couldn't throw the TV on for a few hours until their mum came? Nah, he totally wanted to hurt those kids by telling them. Or if not explicitly to hurt them, at least to center himself in the narrative. Oh, poor me, I had to tell those cute little kids their dad was dead. Do you know how hard that was for me? Etc. That, or he couldn't handle the guilt of knowing when they didn't. Still selfish, but in a more cowardly way. Hearing them talk about him made me sad, and I didn't know how to deal with that, so I just broke their worlds instead. Not the asshole. Now your husband wants to show up and cause drama with the widow at a funeral? Is he crazy? You need to take a very hard line with this guy. Telling the kids against sister-in-law's wishes was all about him, and him just not being able to help it. Brother-in-law's funeral is all about him and being included in a family event he isn't wanted at. He didn't even really apologize, and him saying I couldn't help it negates the apology. Him doing this, plus his insisting to go to a funeral he's not welcome at, would seriously damage my marriage if this was me. Zero accountability, remorse, contrition, making it all about himself. And he couldn't even deal with the consequences once he opened his mouth. He spilled and immediately needed his wife to come home to talk to the kids because he couldn't deal. So their mum ended up having to talk them through it anyway. But she didn't have the grace of a few minutes to feel her own feelings for a moment. I don't believe in groveling, but this is such an egocentric, incompetent series of choices that he should be on his knees for forgiveness, not making more egocentric demands. Our next post is by user Russell201257 titled, Am I the asshole for banning my niece from the house for throwing away all of my son's school supplies? So I, male 43, have a 15-year-old son, Kevin, who started working a summer job for a while. He managed to save up for a new laptop that he uses for his YouTube channel or gaming channel. I'm not quite sure. Anyway, so my niece Chloe, who is 19, visits us a lot to hang out with my older daughter, who is 18. Kevin spends his time in his room when he's not working or studying. He doesn't like when Chloe teases him all the time. It annoys him, and I brought this up with my wife, but she said that's normal cousin teasing and is nothing strange. Chloe saw Kevin's new laptop and wanted to borrow it for her project, but Kevin said no. His reason is that Chloe has a habit of ruining stuff and his laptop is relatively new, so it's normal that he feels overprotective of it. Chloe asked me if I could talk Kevin into giving her the laptop a few days ago, and I told her no means no, and she should just let it go. Well, yesterday Chloe visited while I was out. I came home and found Kevin crying, saying Chloe took all his school supplies from his room and left with them after he refused to let her go home with his laptop. I was infuriated. My wife said she didn't know Chloe took all of Kevin's school supplies with her, and she must have hid them. I called my sister-in-law and told her to ask Chloe to bring everything she took back. She denied any of this happening, so I drove to my in-laws to get this settled. I confronted Chloe, and she admitted to taking the supplies, but said that Kevin denied to let her take the laptop, even after she offered him money, which made him a jerk in her eyes. I demanded that she give the supplies back since they were all that Kevin had, but she said she dumped them somewhere on the way home when her boyfriend gave her a ride. I flipped out and shamed her for this attitude and said that she's banned from my house till she could change her attitude and is willing to make it up for her cousin. My sister-in-law criticized my decision and called my wife, who said Chloe is a teenager acting out but shouldn't be banned from her aunt's house. I said no more discussing this, and my wife got upset, saying that I went too far with the ban. She said she'll talk to Kevin, and if he agreed to forgive Chloe and let her continue to visit, then there's nothing I can do then, since my daughter also wants her cousin in the house. Am I the asshole? Additional info: A. My wife is the type who says we can't call family thieves or bullies. B. They told me, sister-in-law, that Chloe didn't steal, but more like was mad at Kevin for how he treated her and was trying to get back at him, but what's done is done. C. My older daughter also disagrees with me because she wants Chloe to be able to visit, like always. And D. When I talked to Chloe about what she did, she had no problem nor shame explaining what she did and why she did it. In other words, she was unapologetic about her actions. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I'm maybe the asshole because banning my niece from the house might be an extreme reaction, and since my decision upset my wife, that I must have been inconsiderate and made a hasty decision. Now in the comments, CM Lobu says, not the asshole. She's 19. She's an adult throwing a tantrum because she didn't get her way. It's obvious why Kevin didn't want to lend her his laptop. Tell them that if Chloe pays for the things she destroyed and apologizes to Kevin, she can come back, and still won't be allowed to use the laptop. I think the wife is the biggest asshole in this situation. She allowed her own child to be constantly bullied and let her relatives walk all over her family. This is a symptom of a much bigger issue if the wife thinks this is normal behavior. The wife is a huge asshole. Enabling the bullying and poor treatment of her own son in his home. Absolute asshole, poor Kevin. I can't wait for the sequel to this where Kevin's over 18 and he went no contact with his cousin and her parents, low contact with his mother and sister, and only has a relationship with OP. But everyone is harassing OP to push Kevin to be more involved with the family. The Final Frontier says, not the asshole. But what the heck is wrong with your wife? She should be supporting her son, especially when he's a victim of bullying from her sister's bratty adult daughter. The wife was the previous scapegoat in her family. The family has picked a new scapegoat, and she's secretly happy they don't treat her like crap anymore. In fact, she's able to bond with them by allowing and participating in his bullying. Signed, a scapegoat whose mother gladly fed her to the wolves to be accepted. This is huge and probably spot on. Wife seems like quite the pushover, and the never call family thieves BS. I'm quite shocked that she's completely okay with someone coming into her house and just leaving with or stealing crap. Not the asshole. Chloe is a thief, a bully, and an asshole. So is her mom, your wife, your daughter, and anyone else who thinks what Chloe did is okay or just normal cousin teasing. Do not let your wife browbeat Kevin into forgiving her. She needs to stay away from him. Our next post is by user Roffoball, titled, Am I the asshole for giving my brother's girlfriend a place to stay in secret from him? So my older brother Nick has always been a little troubled, but a few years ago he met a girl I'll call Mia who seemed to get him on the straight and narrow. I met up with Mia for dinner recently to catch up. She seemed anxious and upset, and after a while, she opened up about how Nick was getting really jealous and controlling and was jeopardizing her ability to finish college. He was having issues with her living in an apartment where she could be having other men over. He was having issues with her being in study groups and classes with mostly men in her engineering degree. He even contacted some of her professors behind her back because he did not want her on group projects with men. My advice to her is that her education is the most important thing right now, that she should focus on her upcoming senior year, even if that means making it a priority over her relationship. She said she was worried she wouldn't be able to do that without angering him. He had shown up unexpected and angry a few times to her apartment, and she had to deal with him until he'd calmed down, and she was missing deadlines. She admitted she felt like she didn't want to be with him anymore, but she was scared of what would happen if she broke up with him. He's paying for some of her school costs, and she doesn't have family support, plus he wouldn't take it well, she thought, and she wouldn't feel comfortable staying in her apartment. I told her that she could stay with me for senior year, pay me below market rent, and use the savings to cover other expenses. The only thing I'd ask is that she doesn't tell Nick where she's living, or that she's still going to the same college or anything like that, because I didn't want to deal with the drama of having him show up at my house with a bone to pick. She agreed and moved in as a roommate. She lost his number and locked down her social media, switched jobs, and told her professor to not answer his emails, and all of that. But then my mum came to visit unannounced and saw an Amazon package in the driveway addressed to Mia. She found out I was roommates with her now, and it helped her disappear on Nick. She was really upset with me because family comes first, and Nick had been spiraling after his girlfriend ghosted him with no explanation, and that it was terrible of me to help her leave him without even a breakup or explaining. I said that he was hurting her chances of finishing college, and I felt like that was more important than a boyfriend. Hadn't she always told me to focus on my school and career and not get sidetracked by boys? If she knew what was best for her own daughter, couldn't she want the same for someone else's daughter? Then she said that I was twisting her words. There's a difference between focusing on school and ending a relationship that was headed towards engagement with only a message saying to leave her alone. Am I the asshole for helping my brother's girlfriend leave him quietly? I feel like of all people in this world that is exposed to this son, this mother should know what he's like, how he reacts to these things, and how this relationship has been going. I don't understand how she can see him spiraling, being aggressive, being an absolute piece of garbage, and say that this is a relationship headed towards engagement, and that her message to him saying that to leave her alone is somehow OP's fault. Like OP is the one trying to keep them apart, and there was nothing wrong in that relationship before this. There has got to be a screw loose with this woman if she's saying that OP is twisting her words, because there is no difference in this situation. She, in fact, is the only one twisting words, and on top of that, twisting reality to something that it isn't. I feel like she's in denial of the reality of her abusive son and his actions, and the potential danger he poses to this girl, this ex-girlfriend now. So to me, the mother in this story, huge asshole, huge enabler, as is the son, just, I don't know what to do with someone like that. Obviously, ghosting is not great, it is frowned upon, and maybe enabling ghosting is a bad thing in this instance. I would say it's justified completely here, and that OP is not an asshole for doing so and protecting someone that is vulnerable and is going to be abused more than likely. So, not the asshole OP. If you see K says, not the asshole, but let's say what you did. You helped her escape an abusive relationship. Your brother is controlling to the point that she doesn't feel safe leaving him. The asshole here, apart obviously from your brother, is your mum, whose golden child can do no wrong. If she was like this every time he did something wrong growing up, it is probably the reason he is like this towards women. Make sure your mum understands how bad it is and does not tell him she's there. And if possible, help the poor girl organize a plan B, in case he found out and poses a threat to her. Good job helping this girl, but this is far more serious than a jealous college boyfriend. I'm worried that mum will be a flying monkey to Nick and tell him where Mia is hiding. Same. I can't for the life of me figure out why OP didn't explain more of this to her mum instead of acting like it was all about focusing on school. Unless maybe OP didn't want to tell her mum Mia's personal business, which I guess now that I think about it was probably correct. Still, she could have made it clear, in my opinion, without going into details and betraying Mia's confidence. And so much more, Eagle says, not the asshole. You need to get her away from him. Your brother is controlling and abusive. He called her professor to say that she can't be in any groups with men. That's insane. Marrying your brother would be the biggest mistake of her life. But it's also not right that she's staying with him so he will pay for her school. It would have been a control tactic, making her reliant on him, and as such, she has to do XYZ, etc. Financial coercion is unfortunately normal in abusive relationships. And it would have gotten to the point where he would convince her that she didn't need college because after all, he's there to look after her, right? With Bonus knocking her up first chance he got to keep her under his thumb. Not the asshole, OP. And Stoop says, not the asshole, and the response to your mother was absolutely on the money. She didn't like it when her double standard was called out. Sorry to say this, but your brother was being controlling and emotionally abusive. Good on you for saving her from having to deal with potential further abuse and helping her to finish her degree. Our next post is by user Lock4356899, titled, Am I the asshole for getting a lock for my office door despite my husband's disapproval? So me and my husband have been married for 10 years, and we have 2 kids. My husband is currently unemployed, but I recently started working from home in my office for 5 hours. The thing is, my husband would constantly barge into my office and interrupt my work over simple requests he could get done himself. My work is usually with group, and we constantly have group meetings to discuss projects. Requests such as, can you fix this issue in my phone? Can you get the kids ready while I take a shower? Can you watch the oven while I make this phone call? Complaining about the dishwasher, faucet, mixer, and computer not working, and asking me to stop working to get them fixed. And he'd also send the kids in all the time for me to brush their hair or just to fix a zipper. I've talked to him about how this has been impacting my work. I already handle the chores when I'm not working, so I think 5 hours of work should be respected. He would apologize and say he didn't know, then do it again and say it was spontaneously. 2 days ago, I had an important meeting and he barged in, interrupted my meeting, asking me to fix his tie because he was going out later. It was horrible in front of my colleagues and superiors. I bought a lock later and installed it. When my husband got home in the evening and saw it, he looked absolutely shocked. He asked what the lock was for, and I replied that because of him interrupting my work sessions, this was my only way. He sent the kids to their room and then argued, saying, I can't believe you want to act like the kids and I are not even here and lock us out like that. I argued that I didn't appreciate how disrespected my boundaries were and how I thought the lock is the only solution after I've exhausted all of my options. He pitched a fit, saying the lock is not a good solution, and expressed how hurt he was feeling. He asked, imagine how the kids are going to feel when they see it, then went outside to smoke. He kept saying that I should remove it. Am I the asshole? I'm going to need to know how OP thinks they're the asshole. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole for not discussing it with him, and also for not considering how he felt about the lock on the door. Sorry, why do you need to discuss getting a lock for a door in your house to your husband? Can this not be a unilateral decision given the circumstances of what's going on? Or is me not being married and not understanding marriage and relationship dynamics like that getting in the way of, oh my god, I can't make any decisions of my own work and autonomy without considering my other partner first? I can't even just go out to Bunnings and buy a lock for myself, put it up on the door, and they can't question that? Does my partner have to question every decision I make, especially when it's me trying to get work done in my office? I'm trying to wrap my head around this one because I can see an argument for it, but I don't agree with the husband's side of this one. I hate it when people know that I'm trying to work and they intentionally interrupt me and destroy my focus, and I can't imagine with OP here how pissed off they would be in the middle of a work meeting to have him barge in, knowingly, having this happen multiple times in the past. I completely understand OP's frustrations given those considerations. I'm gonna say not the asshole for this one. Now in the comments, Malik Yahweh says, "You just want to pretend like the kids in Die aren't here." No mate, there's an obvious response to this that might help get it through to him. You say, "Yes, I want to pretend like I'm away from home in an office while I work, and I'd like for you all to pretend the same." What you're asking is no different than it would be if you worked 5 hours a day in an office and he desperately needs to respect that, not the arsehole. She's definitely not the arsehole, he just doesn't want to parent the kids and now he'll have to. And also, be prepared for him now to retaliate by filling the kids' heads with how mummy doesn't love them anymore, and other toxic stuff like that. This feels like it isn't far away. OP, threaten to rent an office space elsewhere so you can work. Your husband clearly isn't willing or able to be a homemaker, and that's generally cool because lots of people aren't, female or male. But it isn't cool if it's affecting your family's potential and potentially your marriage, and particularly if it's something he said he would do, but now won't. He's being an arsehole, you are not the arsehole. Janie says, not the arsehole. If he respected your boundaries and working time, then the lock wouldn't be required. Agreed. I feel OP's pain. My hub still works outside the home, and I've been at home since this all started. Sometimes when he gets home, he starts having conversations, and I have to remind him I'm working. OP needs to set better boundaries and remind her husband that if she's in the office, pretend she's at the office, and he couldn't ask her any of these questions because she's not there. If not, the lock stays. I'm sure that if he was still working, he wouldn't appreciate her barging in or just allowing the kids to come to him to fix zippers or brush hair while he was working. He doesn't appear to value her job or that she's actually working. I think a lot of couples have struggled with this during the pandemic and so many people starting to work from home. The only thing I can think of that OP could have possibly done differently is say to him, either stop this or I'm going to install a lock on the door, and then proceed as necessary. I have a feeling they'd end up in the same place they are now though, and he should have listened the first time she told him to respect her work time. Am I the asshole for getting mad that my oldest son didn't let my youngest win a game? So I have 4 kids. Only 2 are relevant to the story. My 10-year-old son we'll call Jack, and 8-year-old son we'll call Tony. They were playing Mario Kart with each other on their 3DSs. My oldest son knows to let the youngest win, otherwise he'll throw a tantrum. The boys swapped DSs because Tony's needed to be charged, and Jack didn't really feel like moving from his spot. Like I said, Jack knows to let Tony win, but for some reason he didn't this time. Tony started his usual I didn't win tantrum and threw Jack's 3DS across the room. The console broke, the top screen came off the bottom, and the buttons are unresponsive. Jack was upset and that's why I got mad at him. He had been told repeatedly to let Tony win to avoid a tantrum. My husband and my 2 girls, 16 and 17, are saying that I should make Tony give Jack his 3DS. But I think it's Jack's fault for giving him his one, then not letting him come first place. Jack is refusing to share anything with Tony and has hardly spoken to me in days, so I'm left to deal with the constant tantrums on my own. Am I the asshole? And edit, can you guys please stop messaging me wishing death on my kids? What the hell, Reddit? I think this is a fairly obvious you're the asshole for not properly parenting these kids and setting clear boundaries between the two, and instead just blaming one son for not letting the other win, when that's not the point of these games. You're just enabling bad habits that Tony shouldn't be learning if you tell Jack to let him win all the time. That's not how life works. You're the asshole for the bad parenting. Now in the comments, Sev's Mama 21217 says, "You're the asshole and a crappy parent. It's not Jack's responsibility to help you handle Tony's tantrums. You do not reward bad behavior. Tony throws tantrums to get his way, and you just go along with it. He has you trained. Tony is old enough to understand that there are consequences to his actions. Having to give his brother his toy is a natural consequence of breaking his brother's toy. Get a grip before Tony grows into an entitled adult with no sense of accountability." I have 3 kids. You know what happens if you throw a fit because you lost? You don't get to play anymore. You damage your sibling's toy because you have a fit? Your toy becomes their toy. It's a natural consequence. OP needs to get Tony's tantrums under control. We get so many posts on here about adults who throw tantrums when they don't get what they want. They demand weddings be cancelled, they assume they'll be included on expensive vacations at no cost to them, they cry and moan, and their feelings are so genuinely hurt when the world doesn't bend over backwards to cater to them that you have to wonder where they come from. This is where they come from. You're the asshole. Jack is the victim in this situation. If Tony is having tantrums, it's because you are failing to enforce appropriate consequences to make him grow out of it. Jack is not an instigator. He shouldn't have to let his brother win all the time. He should be allowed to win as well. And if your fear was dealing with tantrums, then you must have been setting this expectation since before Jack was 8. So you should know very well this isn't necessary. Jack is the one that should be receiving an apology and appropriate recompense, both from Tony and from you. Jack is also clearly kind to his brother. He gave Tony his DS to play on because Tony's needed to be charged, and as a result got his DS broken. How are you supposed to raise a kid when they're rewarded for tantrums and bad behavior, and apparently punished for anything remotely good? Not only because it didn't need to be charged, but because Tony didn't feel like moving. What a brat. And now on to the update. Hi, so it's been a few months since I posted that, and I was mostly rightfully dragged for it. There's been enough breakthroughs for an update, so here we go. As I mentioned in the comments, Tony has unmedicated ADHD, and after taking him to his doctor to start the medication process, we were told that it wasn't ADHD, but most likely autism spectrum disorder. The doctor was in fact right. However, Reddit was right, and I was enabling his behavior. We, myself, my husband, and Tony are all in group and individual counseling now. And on to Jack. I did not make Tony give Jack his 3DS, but Santa delivered Jack an early Christmas present, a brand new Nintendo Switch. Tony isn't allowed to touch it. There's much less tolerance for Tony's tantrums now, and his behavior has improved massively. He doesn't get what he wants just because he'll have a tantrum. Now he understands that he'll be put in a room of his own, and if he comes out before he's calmed down, he will not be acknowledged. Overall, a pretty positive update. Thank you for all of your advice and for telling me I was in fact the asshole. Now in the comments, Tiny Lolita says, "Family is a complicated matter. Everyone has different parenting skills, but I do see that OP loves their children. Some may think OP isn't doing enough to remedy the situation that got them to write the other post in the first place. I always see people in a more positive light when they've screwed up, took advice, and try to better themselves instead of doubling down. It's much better than those labeled assholes still trying to defend their actions in their updates. Small changes at a time. One big step forward can push you 3 steps back, putting you in the same position again much easier and faster. You also don't want to be too harsh on kids. The youngest is going to have a learning curve and a harder one, since he also needs to unlearn that tantrums equals free pass. Instituting timeouts is a great way to start. Hopefully, they're also going to look into giving their son tools to calm down. Timeouts and being away from the situation helps. It also isn't always everything a kid needs to calm down, and might need some extra guidance like breathing exercises or something." Wow. I just read through the original post. It's amazing what can be accomplished when a bunch of strangers call someone an asshole. I'm glad everything worked out in the end here. What an amazing second sentence that is. Look, unless a person is truly intractable or is posting here without honest intent, i.e. for validation or just trolling, I think that it would be rather difficult to shake off around 1.5 thousand people calling you an asshole after hearing both your reasoning and your side of the story. And that's a conservative estimate, allowing for more dissenters and undecided commenters than I suspect there actually were. It's not that easy to shake off that many people telling you that, contrary to your beliefs, you screwed up good and proper, especially when many commenters were good enough to explain, often in excruciating detail, or with painfully apt stories of their own experience parallel to Jack's, how what OP should be doing differs from what OP actually did and does. That's far too great a consensus to wave off as happenstance or an echo chamber, at least as long as the one receiving those comments is willing to learn or to try and do better. Our next post is by user X and Money, titled, "Am I the asshole for not wanting to give any money to my pregnant ex?" So my ex, 25 female, and I, 27 male, were together for about 6 months, but during that time we were free to see other people. Things weren't working out, so we broke up. Over a month after that, she finds out she's pregnant and tells me the baby is mine. But I already knew she was seeing other guys, so it was also possible the baby isn't. She got mad that I was having doubts, but I said that if we got a paternity test and it showed that I'm the dad, then yeah, I'll be 100% involved. My ex didn't want that, and she'd rather wait until after the baby is born to get a test done. So I said that's fine, it's her choice, but I won't get myself involved unless I know the baby is mine. Like, I already know I could be set up for child support if I start helping out now, and then later it's revealed I'm not the father. I live in the US and have heard that this stuff happens a lot. I'd rather not even risk it, you know? She's about 8 months now, and I've started saving up money, reading up some books, making shopping cart lists of baby clothes and furniture to buy in case I'm the father, so it's not like I'm not preparing for this at all. So right now, money is tight with her since I know she's only working part-time. She doesn't have the money for a baby bassinet or clothes because she practically lives paycheck to paycheck. She started asking to let her borrow money for baby stuff, but I've told her no. Far as I know, she doesn't have other family she's close to, and friends are the same as her with money. But I already said that I'll start giving her money and helping out once I know her son is mine. Otherwise, I'd rather not get involved. I've even told her to reach out to the other guys who could also be the dads, but she said one is even more broke, and the other one she hasn't been able to contact. So for right now, seems like I'm the only one actually able to offer financial support. We have a couple mutual friends, and I'm getting crap from them because they know I have the money to help out. She could be the mum of my kid, so the least I could do is provide. They say they would if they had the money. Since I do have the means, and this baby could be mine, I should already be helping. They have a point, the baby could be mine, and I will be happy to help out, once I know he is in fact mine. But everyone else is seeing it as I'm being too cold and inconsiderate. I don't think I am, but I want to know what others believe. Am I the asshole? I want to know what kind of drugs all these other people are smoking. Have none of these friends watched the Jerry Springer show? I want to go up to them and start chanting, "Jerry, Jerry, he is not the father!" and just like splay the paperwork everywhere. That would be pretty epic. Anything to convince these people that you don't just start investing in this child without proof that it is yours, regardless of what her circumstances are. If you don't have to provide child support and you're not with this woman, why would you shoot yourself in the foot like that and set yourself up to give child support when it's not your child? Am I living in cuckoo land with this story? Not the arsehole OP, it's better to look out for yourself in this instance. Now in the comments, not the asshole. You don't owe her anything until you're sure of paternity. And to be honest, if she can't afford to have a kid, regardless of who the father is, she shouldn't be having a kid. You took the words right out of my mouth. Let's not forget either that I can't reach one guy and the other one is broke is a her problem, and likely the only reason she's trying to peg OP as the father. I'm not sure why she would even keep a baby if she can't afford it, especially if 2 out of the 3 possible fathers can't provide. I wouldn't want to be stuck paying for a kid that wasn't mine either. It seems like this girl really screwed up, and if she's in such dire financial straits, it'll only get worse after she delivers and can't work for a bit. You would think she would have got the test if she was hurting for cash that bad, but the fact that she didn't shows me she probably thinks he isn't the father. I wouldn't help the ex at all, not financially or otherwise, until he knows the paternity of the kid. Family court is a strange beast, and I wouldn't give them any reason to make him responsible if the child turns out not to be his. Edit to add, I just read that not only did you use protection, she did too. So that, coupled with her not wanting to get the paternity test, tells me she doesn't think you're the father. She just thinks you are the best financial option, which you are. Don't help or give her a dime until paternity is established, because there's a huge chance it's not yours. It's possible that the paternity test thing is just because she's worried about the welfare of the baby. Until very recently, the only prenatal paternity test carried with it a pretty high risk of causing a miscarriage. Now they can do it with a blood test, but I've no idea how expensive that is, or if she even knows about it as an option. And OP replies, I told her about that one back when we first found out, and offered to pay for it just so we would both know already. For some reason though, she still refused, even after telling her they'd basically be taking blood from her. Nothing physical would be done to the baby. Oof. Definitely not that then. I can understand her trepidation. She has a lot to lose if you are not the father. You are absolutely not the asshole. I feel a bit sorry for her, but pity for her doesn't make you a bad person for not being her savior. If you were feeling insanely super generous, you could give her a baby shower gift once the DNA results are in if you are not the dad, but that is absolutely not an obligation, and it's not something you're morally required to do. It would be like hero levels of nice. And now on to the update. Hasn't been that long, but I thought I should update since many of you wanted to know. Following what a few here suggested, I tried talking to my ex again about getting the prenatal paternity test done right now since she kept pressing me about giving her money. I said if her situation is that bad, then let's have this test done already so if the baby is mine, I can start helping now. Because if we waited until after birth, she was going to have to wait for my support until the results came in. Plus, if she still refused a paternity test then, it would be more waiting around to get a court-ordered test. Meaning no help from me at all for a while, even after the baby is already here. So yeah, she agreed to it in the end. He's not mine. I just got the results the day before yesterday. My ex really didn't have much to say. She only texted, "Fine then, I won't bother you anymore." I told her I was sorry and I wished her luck, and I also told her about what you guys commented about Facebook posts selling or giving away used baby stuff, plus the WIC program that could help her out since she's low income. But she didn't respond after that and I haven't heard from her since, so I don't know if she'll look into those. Not gonna lie, I'm a little disappointed. I know I was having my doubts about this baby being mine and was keeping my distance, but like I said, I was mentally and physically preparing in case he was, so that I could be there as a father. I still feel that loss, but at least now I know for sure. I appreciate everyone who commented, and thanks for the info and advice. Now in the comments, Outrageous Text 4914 says, I'm sorry to hear about your disappointment, but you did everything you could to help, to a reasonable extent, by providing resources for her to look into. I'm sorry to hear about your disappointment too, OP. One thing crossed my mind. Could her reluctance to do the test mean she's telling more guys that they're the father? If you read the original, they were only together for 6 months in an open relationship, and they were both sleeping around. It's more likely she picked the safest bet and doesn't actually know who it is. Mr. Silk says, thanks for the update. I was curious about how the situation was going to turn out. Since you knew she was seeing other guys, you did the smartest thing you could have done. Establish paternity as the first step. It's understandable that you may be left with a feeling of loss. For a period of time, there was the potential that you brought another human into the world. That potential is now gone. You seem like a good guy and have never been the asshole in this situation. And OP replies, yeah, exactly. Hard not to feel some sort of attachment at the possibility of having a kid. I know it's not the same as actually losing a kid. He was never mine to begin with, but I guess there's still that emptiness and sadness. I know I'll get over it in time, but the news is still fresh and all. Just a suggestion, could y'all throw her a baby shower? Especially the friends who told you off for not helping her. What are they doing now? Like, it's funny how people clam up when they could indeed help. And OP replies, maybe yeah. Probably won't be able to actually meet with the pandemic, plus she's due soon. Their issue was they were all just as broke as her, but I don't see why pitching in on a gift would be a problem for them. Drive-by and Zoom baby showers are real things. A drive-by baby shower made me picture a group of gangbangers just chucking baby clothes and pacifiers at a random pregnant woman. And Friendly Stoner Girl says, not the asshole. My cousin just found out the baby he thought was his daughter isn't his. She lied, and the baby is over a year old now. They weren't together, and the baby went back and forth between them each week until he received the paternity test. He gave her $2,000 a month. Everyone in our whole family is heartbroken because now she's keeping her from him since he discovered the truth, and he's a mess. It's a lot less painful, and it's really smart of you to do this. It's crazy that people do this. Wow, I'm really sorry for your cousin. I hope things get better for him. Can't even imagine how hard that must be. I don't know why people need to lie. Needing money or feeling like you don't have any other option, I guess, is one reason, but why at the cost of someone else's life and of your child's too? Anyways, that's a really tough situation. I hope he gets some help. The hardest lesson to learn is that some people just don't care whose life they screw up so long as they get theirs. I've noticed so much the last few years how much people are only out there for themselves in the end. It's really shocked me and has changed my outlook on a lot of things now. I'm a lot more wary around everyone and what their intentions are. Didn't like losing that piece of innocence about the world. Am I the asshole for not allowing my sister near my bearded dragon after doing a TikTok trend with my pet? I have a bearded dragon named Phil who I've had for about 1 year now. Phil is deeply loved by me and my family. My sister, 15 female, who I will call Jane, really likes to make TikToks of Phil, which I've completely no problem with since they're normally just videos of Phil running around or doing something silly, like opening his mouth when he basks. Yesterday, my sister came up to me to show me a TikTok she had made of Phil. There is a trend on TikTok of putting butter on dogs as some audio plays over it of this guy saying butter dog. Well, Jane showed me a video of her putting some soft butter on Phil so that she could follow the trend. When I saw that, I became very upset. I had seen a video recently of someone explaining how doing this trend with bearded dragons can be dangerous because the butter will stick to their skin. And if they get put back under their basking light, the butter will heat up and basically burn the bearded dragon's skin. I told Jane to delete the video and that she can't do stuff like that with Phil, and quickly got him out from under his basking light that she had put him back under after the video and started to bathe him in the tub to try and get off any of the butter that she didn't wipe off. My sister came and told me I was overreacting and that it's just a fun trend. I snapped at her and told her I'm not letting her near Phil until she apologizes to me and promises not to do trends like these with Phil again, and ask me every time she wants to make a video with Phil. My sister got angry and told me she wasn't apologizing for just wanting to have fun with Phil and that I can't take Phil away from her. After I finished making sure all the butter was off him, I put him back in his tank that's in my room, and I told her that she's not allowed to come in and take Phil. My parents found out this morning and told me that I was out of line for what I did and that it was just an innocent video. They told me I need to stop freaking out so much over things that involve Phil. My sister said she's not apologizing because she didn't know that it would hurt Phil, so I should get over it and let her see Phil again. I feel like I can't trust her with Phil though. If she hadn't shown me the video, Phil would have sat in his tank getting burned under his basking light, and I wouldn't even know until it was too late. I think I might be the asshole because I could be overreacting like my family say that I am, and for yelling at her when she didn't know that doing the trend would hurt Phil. So Reddit, am I the asshole? Yeah, personally, I do think her doing that to Phil would hurt him, as you said, and I think it's a danger that she continues to be with him while she's not apologized or proven that she can be trusted with Phil and not hurt him doing stupid TikTok challenges like this. And that's all they are stupid TikTok challenges. There really isn't a reason to do them. It's great when you can do safe challenges that are fun, but this is obviously dangerous. So yeah. Not the asshole for this one. It's your pet, you get to say what happens and who gets to look after it. Now in the comments, Kmart Dino 3 says, not the asshole. Going viral on social media is not worth potentially harming a pet. Exactly. Animals that we're entrusted with as pets do not exist as entertainment props to be exploited. Not the asshole, respect the pets. Not the asshole. I agree with the above and want to say that just because she didn't know that it would hurt him doesn't mean she didn't owe you an apology. If someone spills milk but didn't mean to, it doesn't mean they get to let the milk sit there and not clean it up just because they didn't spill it on purpose or didn't know the milk was going to spill. My parents had a poinsettia in their house, which I noticed when I brought my cat over. She's kind of a therapy cat for my mom. I pointed out that poinsettias are extremely poisonous to cats. No one had any ill intent or anything, but my parents apologized for not knowing that and just about ran to throw out the poinsettia. I had to convince them it was okay to keep as long as it and all its leaves were out of the cat's reach. That is how you respond when someone says, hey, maybe you didn't mean to, but you're endangering my pet. Actually, you can be a lot more mellow than my parents to your response and still be correct. But the point is, if someone says you're unintentionally causing harm, you damn well stop doing it and apologize, even if you didn't mean to. Not the asshole, keep your sister and parents away from Phil. Agara Brandt says, not the asshole. I don't know much about lizards, but it sounds like you have a genuine concern here, and you're entirely justified in wanting to ensure the health and safety of your animal. If your sister cared so much about Phil, she would have been sorry about doing something that potentially causes him harm and worried that he might not be okay. The safety of your animal is a lot more important than the feelings of your sister, especially over something as petty as a TikTok. Animals are not a trend to get likes and views for, and if your sister doesn't understand that, then she doesn't deserve the privilege of seeing Phil, no matter how upset she might be. And now on to the update. Hello. So, sorry that I haven't been on in a while. Things have been very busy for me, but I'm here with an update. So after my last post and getting all your feedback, I had ordered a lock for Phil's tank and put it on once I got it so that my sister couldn't just get him. I waited a bit to see if my sister would apologize, but she didn't. So I sat down both my parents and sister to go over again why I wasn't allowing her to see Phil and how what she did was not okay. I had made a slideshow and everything about how putting butter on bearded dragons was in fact not a harmless trend. I told her that I wasn't mad at her for doing it since she didn't know, but I was upset over how she reacted. It took a lot of explaining, and I even used some advice you guys gave me on how to best explain it, and after a lot of talking and a bit of arguing, it seemed they finally got it. My sister got upset and apologized to me for how she reacted, and seemed genuinely upset after she realized what she did to Phil. My parents also apologized for not taking my side and scolding me for what rules I set in place. The lock is still staying on the tank just in case, but my sister is now allowed to see him and play with him if she asks me, and she's not allowed to make any more videos of Phil without me being there to watch. She seems a bit irritated about the rules, but she follows the rules. I also got her to take the video off of TikTok, and she ended up making a video on how what she did was stupid and that to not to do what she did, which I'm very pleased with. She has gone back to making her harmless videos of Phil, just playing and running, and all is going well now. I also want to thank Reddit again for the advice and reassurance that what I was doing wasn't wrong, since I honestly was pretty lost at the time. Now in the comments, Turkey Bacon is Heresy says, I know people are saying how it's a pain in the ass that you had to make a slideshow to get your fam to listen, and they aren't wrong. But I think it's amazing that you got your 15-year-old sister to not only apologize, but publicly post on her account saying that she was wrong and spreading awareness that that trend can be harmful to bearded dragons. I know she was being a pain, but I think it's worth acknowledging what a tremendous amount of self-awareness it takes for a teenager to not only apologize for being wrong, and mean it, but to publicly post that they were wrong. I know grown-ass adults that are literally incapable of that. Honestly, good on your sister, and good on you for being willing to take the time to really explain the harm she inadvertently could have caused. Absolutely this. Very few people will ever admit they were wrong and apologize. It sucks that it took so long for them to come around, but the fact that they actually did come around is pretty remarkable. I really don't understand why people struggle to apologize for things. It's such an easy way to resolve a conflict. Look, it's really hard to admit that you're wrong sometimes. People tend to get very defensive when they're challenged, and apologizing sometimes feels like admitting defeat, no matter how untrue that is. Wallow Fancy says, "That's frustrating that you had to put in so much work just to make people understand that their actions could hurt a living thing. I'm glad it all worked out for you though. You sound like a wonderful pet owner." Right? She had to make a friggin' slideshow. Those family members didn't want to understand. I think they did understand and just wanted to hold their ground, but had no choice once the OP wouldn't relent. I too would keep a lock in Phil's tank. Maybe the final slide could be instructions to slather themselves with butter and sit under a heat lamp. Our next post is by user Sparky's Human, titled, "Am I the asshole for refusing to let my girlfriend get a dog because it'll upset my old man of a cat? I, 30 female, have been with my girlfriend, 31 female, for 3 years now, and we recently moved into a nice house in the country. Gonna eat a lot of peaches. Now, as we're finally living somewhere with a decent-sized garden, my girlfriend wants to get a dog. She's always wanted a dog, and I've said to her that we can get one day, but not until my cat passes away. My cat Sparky is 14 years old, is blind in one eye, and hates dogs. I love this cat. He's my baby, as I would love any animal that my partner and I get together. But is it unreasonable to ask that he lives out his twilight years in peace, eating his favorite foods, curling up by the fire, hogging the bed and watching tennis without getting a new puppy in the mix? My girlfriend says that I'm being unreasonable, that my cat and the new dog will be great friends, but I know Sparky, and he's always either been anxious or aggressive towards dogs. My friends and family say that if I love my girlfriend, I should let her get the dog. I do love her, and I'm not against her getting a dog. I'm just asking her to wait a little bit until my cat passes away. So am I the asshole? I think you guys have been together long enough to know this cat and know each other, and to me, this seems like a reasonable request. I can see why she wants the dog so much, and absolutely, the dog is going to happen. Just let the cat live out its last years first. I do wonder how long the cat has left. 14 is pretty old, but it's not uncommon that cats live longer than that, like quite a bit longer. She's probably taking that into consideration as well. I'd be careful if I was OP here and the girlfriend's like, hey, before we move to this country house, let's just move next to a main road for a few months and just see how we get along there, see if we like the change of scenery, with the intention of the cat not being able to see the cars on the main road. And, you know, life happens sometimes. That's what happened to my second cat. That was kind of sad. Anyway, don't let that happen, OP. That's probably a bad idea. I'm gonna go not the asshole for this one. I support you standing up for this cat. Now in the comments, Yachty Wannabe says, not the asshole. Let old man Grumps live out his days dog-free. And OP replies, old man Grumps, that suits my cat to a T. Be advised, based on other posts of similar issues, she might force it by just randomly getting a dog to prove things will be fine. Whoa. Don't forget this subreddit is full of the outliers of human behavior. Most people aren't enough of an asshole to do that. It's only a very small possibility. Yeah, but since it's an outlier already, my advice stands. It would be nice if it never happened, but being warned there's a chance means no follow-up post of being blindsided later with a puppy. Not the arsehole, and I don't think the question is even whether the cat deserves to override any new dog's desires, and he does. Precious old grumpy cats. I have one too. The critical matter is that you were clear from the get-go that any future dogs in the relationship would have to be after old grump man passes. If girlfriend didn't like this setup, she was free to remove herself from the situation. Agreeing and moving in together only to get pissy later is 110% arsehole behavior. And not the arsehole. Basic rule of pets. Everyone who lives in the house gets veto power on any new pet being added to the house. In this case, you get veto power, and you can argue that your cat gets veto power as well. I think that you're fine to stick to your guns here. I think your girlfriend is being very lightly the asshole for pushing this issue. She's fine to want the dog, but not to keep pushing this if you've clearly explained your reasoning. And now on to the update. So I thought that I would give you all an update on the pet situation. After another argument with my girlfriend about the dog situation, we asked a friend of ours if we could look after her dog, a very placid, sleepy, and uninterested bulldog, for a few days while she was at work, so she could see for herself how Sparky would react. And let me say, my girlfriend now understands why I wanted to wait until Sparky had died before getting a dog. Within the 6 hours that we had the dog, Sparky had tried to bite him on the leg. I pulled him away before he could even make contact with him, and I hauled Sparky's ass upstairs, away from the dog after that moment. While upstairs, Sparky did nothing but yowl at us and revenge piss on the bed, before hiding on top of the wardrobe. While all of this was happening, my friend's dog just lay there on the floor of the lounge doing absolutely nothing. Upon seeing what Sparky was willing to do to a dog that wouldn't even hurt a fly, my girlfriend has now agreed that if she wants a dog, then it has to be an outdoor dog, which she doesn't want, or to wait until the awful day that Sparky is no longer with us. Grumpus is very happy with that plan. Grumpus, Sparky, is now going to spend his golden years lying in front of the fire, watching tennis and Blue Planet on TV, eating lots of treats, and sitting on the landing windowsill where he loves to watch the whole world go by, while casually growling at any dog he sees walks past the house. And he's very happy with this plan. I promise my friend's dog was not hurt. I don't even think that he realized that my cat was planning on attacking him, and Sparky is as happy as a lamb again. No more revenge pissing. Now in the comments, Dog is my god says, I think this was a good way to handle it. No dogs were harmed and Sparky will be happy. Girlfriend now understands why Sparky can't be around dogs. Actually amazed at how well this solved the problem. Temp dog sitting never would have occurred to me. Also, it's amazing how good that dog was. If it was my dog, she would bark back and whine and probably howl out of anger, annoyance, and fear. I don't think the girlfriend would understand Sparky as much because if it was a good dog, Sparky would be a good cat. Having such a good boy really showed Sparky don't give a fuck. Agreed. Also, my puppy dog liked cats originally and is a good old pup. But then it met Grandma and Grandpa's grumpy cat, and now she's been fearful of cats for the last 5 years. So OP, the lesson isn't just that the dog might get hurt and your cat would be unhappy, it's also the lasting effect on any new dog. A trial run was a genius idea. I've desperately wanted a dog for years, and while my girl can share a home with a dog, I see no reason to disrupt her life when she's only got a few years left. My want for a dog doesn't overrule her need for a calm, quiet home. Besides, the longer I wait for a dog, the more research I can do. And our next post is by user Queen Fairy, titled, Would I be the asshole for not telling my mum that my stepmom is adopting me? So I, 24 female, do not have a good relationship with my bio mum. Our relationship is tolerable due to her living a couple states away and us really only talking once or twice a month. I have a very good relationship with my dad, and we are extremely close as a result. My dad will be officially marrying my stepmom before this year ends, but she's been in my life since I was 13 or 14. She's always been like a mother to me, even when she and my dad weren't together anymore. They were broken up for a few years and got back together almost 3 years ago, and I view her as my mum, her daughters as my sisters, etc. I want to honor her as my mum, and she's more than happy to adopt me, so we'll be moving forward with the process soon. I don't plan to tell my bio mum beforehand because I kinda don't want to have to deal with it. I would, however, make the announcement via social media once everything is official, and my bio mum would be finding out that way. Where I live, the bio parents don't have anything to do with the process once it's an adult adoption. So would I be the asshole if I say nothing to my bio mum beforehand and just let her find out about my adoption via social media? I guess that really depends on your mum and your relationship to your mum. You know, there's going to be several camps of people with different relationships to their own mothers, and the camp I'm in, I have a decent relationship with mine. So from my perspective, if I were to have a stepmother that then I would just spring an adoption on online, I feel like that'd be a bit of a dick move without telling my biological mother at all. I feel like a lot of people would question it. I'd probably have quite a few family members upset at me for not telling her just because that doesn't seem like something you would do. So while morally, I'm not sure if you'd be an asshole for doing so, I think it's just questionable, and I don't think there's any reason in a lot of circumstances just not to give a heads up to your bio mom. But on the flip side, I understand you don't want to have to deal with that. I'm very much non-confrontational myself, and I can see myself doing something like this, unfortunately. So in considering that flip side and everything I've said previously, I'm gonna say not the arsehole. I don't think it's particularly egregious or, spiteful. It's just weird to me. Now in the comments, Mud and Whiskey says, "Not trying to be rude, I'm actually confused. But what in the actual F is an adult adoption?" And OP replies, "It's essentially the same as adopting a minor. I would be legally considered my stepmom's daughter for all intents and purposes, inheritance, medical, etc. The only big difference is that where I live, my stepmom can adopt me without my bio mom's knowledge or consent as long as I consent to being adopted." But you lose all that with your bio mom. If she passed, she does not have to mention in her will. And OP replies, "Honestly, my stepmom is way more successful and financially set than my mom has ever been, though I'm not super concerned about a possible inheritance, and I will have some access to her military and professional benefits. Plus, in the worst case that something happened to me and my significant other, I want to ensure that our son would go to my dad and stepmom rather than my bio mom." Psychotic Anubis says, "Not the asshole. You have no obligation to your bio mom for anything, especially for you being adopted as you're already an adult and can make your own choices on this matter." Elegant Rectum says, "No assholes here, but I think you should probably tell her personally before you announce it on social media. I mean, you say you don't have a good relationship with her, but you still talk to her monthly, which means that she has some role in your life. You want no contact with her. I assume you care about her to some extent as a human being, if not as a mother. So I think it would be better if she doesn't find out online." And OP replies, "I'll take this into consideration. We've had periods of no contact before, which I've always been okay with, but she always ends up wanting to contact again, which I don't mind as long as it's not detrimental to me. I care about her like I would an associate, I guess. My stepmom is the one I consider to be my mum, my son's grandmother, etc." Now back to the post. Edit. Thank you all for your comments and judgments. I read and took into consideration each and every one of them. While the general consensus seems to be that I wouldn't be in the wrong to not say anything, I've decided to give my bio mom a heads up prior to posting the news on social media. I'm going to wait till everything is official to tell her, and will post an update at that time. And for our first update, so we finally started moving forward with the adoption process. We filed the petition for an adult adoption and paid the filing fee. I got my consent letter notarized today. There's just a few more papers to do later. SM and Dad are super happy and excited about it, especially since they're going to be officially married in a few months. My dad had a stroke due to that which shall not be named, so the wedding got pushed back. The average turnaround to be completely finalized is supposed to be 60 to 90 days. I'm hoping that's still the case despite the current circumstances of the world. I still haven't said anything to my bio mom yet, and I'm waiting till everything is official. It's not much of an update, but it's something for everyone that cared enough to comment last time. And now on to the update. So, the adoption hearing was this past Thursday. It was meant to be last month, but got pushed back due to the freak snowstorm we had. It was online through Zoom, and it only took 10 to 15 minutes speaking to the judge and getting the papers signed. After that was done, I called my bio mom, and I spoke with her about our relationship, before finally telling her about the adoption. I told her that my decision wasn't meant to be malicious or hurt her in any way, that it was something that would make me happy, and that it didn't mean that we couldn't still have a relationship. She took the news pretty well, and said that she'd always love me and be my mum regardless of what a piece of paper says. The call ended on a good note, and I'm hopeful that things will stay that way. My parents and I, along with my significant other and son, then had a yummy celebratory breakfast and an overall great day. We didn't post about the adoption on social media until a few hours after my bio mum and I had our conversation, but we did get an outpouring of love from friends and family once we shared the news. I know I originally anticipated this update being filled with lots of drama, but I'm happy to have been wrong, it seems. Edit to add, since some users thought this should be included, before telling her about the adoption, I did discuss with her my hesitation at letting her have a relationship with my son during our conversation regarding our relationship. I did also make it clear that if my rules and boundaries regarding me and my child weren't followed, she wouldn't be in his life. And in the comments, Snail Varnish says, "Congratulations. I've also looked into adult adoption, for different reasons however, but I totally get your reasons for going through with it. I decided not to do it, as I don't want my bio dad taken off my birth certificate. He passed, but we were very close, but I may eventually hyphenate my name. I'm glad you were able to get official documentation of your relationship, and that everything went okay with your bio mum in the end. Smiley face. A lot of folks don't understand adult adoption, or even know it's an option, but having that relationship documented is just as valid as documenting a marriage. I hope everything continues to go well for you." And OP replies, "Thank you so much, and I'm happy to hear things worked out for you in your own way." Am I the asshole for always wanting the bottom bunk? Okay, so throwaway account, cause this is a bit embarrassing. I, female 19, share a room with my younger sister, female 18. Because the room is relatively small, we share a bunk bed. We are pretty used to this arrangement as we've had it since we were 13 and 14 respectively, and had an arrangement where we would swap the top bunk between us every month. The issue is, since we were 13 and 14, both of us have gained a lot of weight, so getting into the top bunk is difficult. It's especially difficult for me as I'm considerably heavier, to the point where I physically can't make it onto the top bunk without exhausting myself totally, and climbing down is a pretty harrowing experience. As a result, I told my sister that I wanted the bottom bunk indefinitely until I can get my weight back down to a level I can climb up there without worrying I'm going to break it, or myself. Obviously, losing weight can be quite a long and slow process, especially when previously you've had a lifestyle as unhealthy as mine. But this has been a real wake-up call for me. She said it's not a fair arrangement because she struggles climbing up as well, but it's totally not the same. She's slimmer than me, more physically fit, and I think a fair bit stronger. I don't doubt it's difficult, but I've never seen her as totally winded as I am after climbing up, or heard the bed creak like it does with me on it. I said it's non-negotiable, and I'm not sleeping on the top bunk until I've lost around 30 pounds. She called me selfish and unsympathetic, and it's my fault for getting so out of shape. We haven't spoken, aside from in really stilted terms, since we first had that conversation. I know it's petty, but am I the asshole? On one hand, I hate putting her in a difficult situation, but on the other hand, I don't think it's as dangerous for her as it is for me, and I really don't think I fit on the couch. Also, it's really difficult talking about my weight in difficult terms, so please stow your comments about that. I know it's unhealthy, I know I shouldn't have let it get to this point, but I'm trying to work on it and I don't need Reddit to tell me what I already know. OP has offered the following explanation for why they think they might be the asshole. I might be the asshole because A, the situation I'm putting my sister in is difficult for her, even if it's harder for me, and B, it is sort of my fault for being in the shape that I'm in. Now in the comments, Preference Gloomy says you're the asshole. You shouldn't let your mistakes affect your sister's life. You made an agreement to swap beds, you both agreed to this. You can't decide for the both of you that this isn't the deal moving forward. You are not entitled to special treatment because of your weight. Suck it up and use this as a kick up the ass to get your crap together. Good luck on the weight loss. Except the bunk beds usually have a weight limit. Would she then be an asshole if the bed broke and fell on her sister in the middle of the night? Yes, she admitted in the post and comments that her weight is her fault. Therefore it's her fault if she's too heavy for the bed. That's just bollocks. Objects should be adjusted to suit the people, not vice versa. And how exactly do you adjust an already existing bunk bed to fit someone's altered weight? Okay, you could probably add some support, but all in all, if she's gotten too heavy to safely use the pre-bought bed, it's on her to fix it. Either lose weight or buy a new bed that can support her. Like, if I buy a medium-sized shirt and gain weight until I needed a large, I can buy a shirt or I can lose weight until it fits me again. The shirt won't magically fit both sizes. That being said, OP, if the weight issue is that bad, maybe ask your sister to use the top bunk until you've either lost the weight and then actually do it, or bought a new bed so you won't drop on her in the middle of the night. You don't. You buy a new bed. Beds are replaceable. Sisters are not. They've been using the same for several years. It's not even unreasonable to replace it given their ages. Hell, if they're still living at home, it's not even unreasonable to ask the parents to buy them new beds. But you don't blame somebody for their actual body not fitting a bed. You buy a bed that does fit the body. Let me tell you something, says, first, congratulations on committing to making necessary changes regarding your health. Yes, it is a long and difficult process, but remember, a journey of 1,000 miles begins with one step. As to your question, yes, it is unfair to your sister, and that makes you a bit of the asshole. You knew about the deal and your issues for a while. Yes, your sister should be a bit more understanding, but from her perspective, you've only talked about losing the weight, and not actually started. That means she has no idea how long this may take. I suggest you seek a compromise. Set a reasonable goal like 30 pounds and a reasonable weight loss goal like 6 to 10 pounds a month. As long as you're making progress, she agrees to stay on top. Once you hit the goal, you take the top for however many months it takes to even things out. So if you take 2 of her months on the bottom, you repay them to her. If you fail to make progress to the weight loss goal, then that becomes your problem again. She gets the bottom and you figure out another place to sleep safely. And OP says, this is actually a great idea. I'll pitch it to her. And Bex Hutch asks, is there a reason that neither of you have moved out? It doesn't seem so healthy for 2 adults to share a room. And OP replies, I lost my job due to the pandemic and had to move back in. She's having similar employment struggles. I'm sorry to hear that. I didn't mean to sound so harsh. Sorry if I did. And Madkins007 says, not the asshole. But you've trapped yourself into an either-or situation. There are other options. Get an air or foam mattress. Sleep on a couch in another room. Look into getting a better stepladder or step stool. Find and develop another space you can sleep in and maybe turn into another bedroom. And now on to the update. So I got told pretty decisively that I was the asshole, which was hard to take, but looking back on it, was right. Posting was one of the most humiliating things I've ever done, and I was just super depressed at the time due to various things, so maybe my judgment was off. Anyway, after beefing with my sister for a couple of days, I apologized to her and agreed to sleep on the floor. Genuinely a low point in my life, being too fat to climb into bed. But luckily, that was as low as things got. After a few nights on the floor, I started trying to eat right and take some gentle exercise, then moved on to more regular, intense exercise, and am happy to say that in the 3 months since I posted, I've lost almost 50 pounds. I'm still overweight, but I'm no longer obese, and can now climb into the bunk bed without getting winded or worrying I'm going to crush someone. My sister has also started losing weight, so who has the top bunk is getting less of an issue. But damn, it feels good. I'm moving out in a few months, and I promise I'm going to do it as a woman who can sleep in any top bunk that she has to. Now in the comments, Crypto Timo says, "Congrats on your progress." And OP replies, "Thanks." First, I want to tell you I'm so freaking proud of you. I know firsthand how hard it is to lose weight. I've lost a lot myself, so I've been there. You are doing amazing. Don't get discouraged when you hit a stall. It happens to all of us. Drink tons of water, it helps. Keep up the amazing work and keep us posted, please. Congratulations, hon. It's a major accomplishment for you. Keep it up and work towards changing your bad food habits and bad lifestyle habits as much as you can. I've been fighting the same war with my weight since puberty. I've lost big amounts of weight, around 40 to 60 pounds, only to regain the same weight each time. This time in 2018, I knew it was going to literally kill me if I didn't change my life. So that's what I did. I started using an app to help. I worked towards changing recipes for things my husband and I like to eat. We still eat treats, but less frequently and less of them. It's a work in progress, but then so is my life. And that is just fine. Good luck to you, and just remember, failing in a moment is not failing in life. You can always get back on track. Love yourself enough to know that you deserve to be healthy and happy. Our next post is by user Erwin Flynn. Erwin Flynn, I said it right, hell yeah. Titled, "Am I the asshole for not telling my old therapist I wanted to see someone new?" For background, my husband, 34 male, has been telling me, 38 female, for a year now that my therapist was making my anxiety worse. I would cry a lot, saying I was a bad partner and wife, because she had me convinced that when my husband came home from work, he should never have to lift a finger. And me asking him to do things like take the trash out was unreasonable, since I stayed home and he worked. But my husband didn't agree. He said he didn't want a mummy. He wanted a partner, and he can do his part by taking some chores off my plate. I also have bipolar disorder, and when I would go into depression, I wouldn't be keeping up on the house as much as I should be. And she would say that it isn't fair if he has to pick up the slack, because when he got home, I should have everything perfect, and I should be taking care of him completely. I was very conflicted, hence the anxiety. He finally convinced me to take a break from her, and I stopped seeing her in December. And by late February, I had stopped beating myself up for not being the perfect housewife and not anticipating his every need before he had them. But I had just started college and I was feeling super overwhelmed since I'm not good with online learning. The thought of talking to my therapist gave me level 10 anxiety. So I decided to take the school up on counseling services they provided. I did not tell my therapist I was doing this. I honestly couldn't face her yet. I saw this new person for a couple of sessions and I really liked her. Yesterday, my old therapist office called to set up an appointment. I told the receptionist that I decided to see someone else. I guess I was on speakerphone because my old therapist got on and spent 20 minutes berating me, saying that I was unethical for seeing a new person without consulting her first, that I just wanted someone to say, "Poor Erwin," and that I didn't want to get better. That now she knew how my husband feels when I shut down, because I did the same to her. That I was rude, and that I just didn't like how she told me the harsh truths. Then she said she would be talking to my psych in the same office, and he might drop me because of my behavior. Am I the asshole for not telling her beforehand, and that I was thinking about seeing someone else? I waited only because I was so anxious at the thought of talking to her. Maybe I should have just sucked it up and said something. I've been upset ever since her phone call, thinking I am, even though my husband says I'm not. I'm gonna have to just say straight off the bat, this therapist sounds like an asshole. Sounds like a real piece of work, and I get why you didn't want to tell your therapist anything. You shouldn't have to be subjected to that torrent of just foul nastiness that they're giving you. It seems like they enjoy giving you bad advice and treating you like garbage to make your anxiety get worse. That is what I'm getting from this person's words. You shouldn't have to deal with that. That is a terrible therapist, not the asshole, and good riddance. Now in the comments, Kelly Margaret says, not the asshole. Your ex-therapist has several issues of her own. Therapy isn't supposed to be about the therapist pushing her own agenda. She's also acting inappropriately. And OP replies, thank you for your reply. My husband said the same thing, that she has been inappropriate. I really thought I was in the wrong and he was just taking my side. Look, from a psychologist, consider a state board report. This is egregious, and she told you a whole lie about the ethics part. Y'all don't have ethical mandates. We do. Clients move around without allowing the opportunity for appropriate termination all the time. Again, speaking from the provider's perspective, it would have been nice for you to verbalize your discomfort to perhaps allow the opportunity for a different approach, but by the way you describe this person, I'm not even sure that would have been effective. The lack of professionalism is astounding. I'm trying hard to understand why this person thought their approach was appropriate. Was this a religious-based counselor? No shade, it just aligns with the rigid gender roles feedback you've gotten. History Buff 19 says, I'm getting the feeling, just a slight teeny tiny little feeling, that you should report the crap out of her ass. And when I say teeny tiny, I mean every cell in my body is screaming in rage. Not the asshole. That's a bad therapist. Christ almighty, what the hell is her deal? You're not looking for someone to coddle you and tell you what you want to hear. You're looking for someone who will help you, which is not that very bad, terrible, awful therapist. And OP replies, I'm really starting to see just how bad she's been for me. I'm seeing why my recovery has stagnated. The new therapist is a lot different, and I'm going to talk to her about this in my next session. She was really not helping you in the slightest. A therapist should be helping you work through your anxiety, not causing it. If you ever decide to leave any healthcare professional, you aren't required to explain yourself. If you feel comfortable with your new therapist and your anxiety is reducing, that's a very good thing. It's helping. It's amazing that your husband could see that the anxiety was getting worse. You were not a bad person or a bad wife. You were doing incredibly well. Seeking help is proof of that. And now on to the update. First off, my husband would like to say in his best Captain Holt voice, Vindication! I don't want to be too loud, I don't want to break your ears. And I would like to say thank you for the outpouring of support. It really gave me a lot to think about. On to the update. On Monday, I consulted my primary doctor, and he said he was fine prescribing me my meds if my psych did drop me because of what old therapist said. So I had a call with my psych where I asked him straight out if he was dropping me because I wasn't seeing her anymore. Guys, he was shocked. She hadn't told him anything. So I gave him a quick rundown, and he was pissed. Said he had no idea why she would ever say to me that he would drop me, and that me seeing her or not had nothing to do with me and him. He doesn't care who my therapist is, so long as they're helping me. So luckily that worked itself out. And if I do decide to leave that practice, at least I know I have a backup plan. Something tells me that she didn't expect me to actually say anything to him and was counting on me not rocking the boat, as it were. I saw my new therapist today and told her what happened, and she is very angry. She said a lot of the same things you guys were saying, that old therapist was using things I said in therapy as manipulation, and that saying all that stuff with other people around is a major HIPAA violation, and that old therapist was the unethical one, not me. She and I are working through my guilt/trauma feelings, and we're working towards me being comfortable reporting her. I took what you guys said to heart, and I would feel awful if she did this to someone and they didn't have the support system I had, and they hurt themselves over it. I just need a little bit of time to process some of the old feelings this has brought up for me. Thank you guys again. It really helped me stay grounded and kept me from going over the ledge, as it were. Now in the comments, Hold Thy Tongue, Cretin says, wow, I didn't read the original so I went back and oh my god, she was toxic as hell. I'm so glad you had the strength to leave that therapist and you have a supportive husband. Also love that Holt bit. I hear it in my head all the time. And OP replies, thank you. It is my husband's favorite show, so he was happy to be able to trot it out. I'm glad I left too. The more distance I'm getting, the more angry I am, and kicking myself for not listening to him earlier. Stop kicking yourself. Your old therapist was a manipulator and used your therapy to control you. You should feel proud that, with the support of your husband, and by reaching out for advice, you found the courage and wisdom to make a change. And OP replies, thank you. That is a much better way of looking at it. As a therapist, your original post sent me through the roof. Toxic AF, and I would consider filing a grievance with the state. And OP says, thank you. That is what I'm working towards with my new therapist. I really don't want her doing this to anyone else. For sure. People like your old therapist make it difficult for us to do our job. I have horror stories from clients about toxic therapists. Not therapists that were not a good fit, normal, but downright unethical. I start every therapeutic relationship with the disclaimer that fit is the most important part of treatment and I'm not right for everyone. I happily help people find someone who might be a better fit if we don't seem to vibe. It's because of therapists like the one OP saw that I have to tell people it's okay to tell me that we aren't a good fit. It's infuriating. Therapists work for you, not the other way around. Same here. I legit just broke up with a client because she wanted a different modality. I helped her find a new therapist and we processed termination. I've had other clients ask to shift in how sessions are constructed, ask to discuss other topics, etc., and I feel proud that my clients feel comfortable asking for what they want. Therapist is not about me, or you, but about my clients, and it's so important that they get what they need. Anyway guys, I think that's where I'm going to end today's video. If you did like it, tell me what you thought about it down in the comments below, and make sure to just interact with everyone in this community. I love each and every one of you that I get to see on a daily basis. And don't forget, if you are a Patreon subscriber, I love you. You're on the screen right now with the YouTube members as well. If you see yourself, give yourself a pat in the back. You guys help me continue this YouTube journey. You keep me going. I see you guys everywhere. I see your messages, and thank you so much for supporting me. I really love every single one of you. But with that all said, I'm going to be signing off now, guys. I hope you have a good day, night, sleep, whatever you're up to, and I'll see you in the next episode. Bye.